Retro.
Hi, this is Emily Swallow, the Armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we are finishing up this week by rounding up some recent Star Wars news. But before we get into that, Jay, remind everybody where we can be found online.
Absolutely. We are very easily found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is aligned. The signal is boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Andor trailer, some new Star Wars comic news, and then we're going to dive into some Star Wars Celebration news to finish up the show. But like I said, kicking it off, we've got the second and final trailer plus key art for season 2 of Andor. But let's talk about the key art real quick. This is a pretty cool little image they came up with, Jay. You've got the Rebels and everyone associated with them on the left side, and then you've got Cassian and Director Krennic back to back. And on the right side, with Krennic, you've got all the people associated with the Empire, and then behind them, you've got half the Rebel logo and half the Imperial cog there. So I'm digging this. This is pretty neat. It's a little bit more imaginative than what has happened with so much with movies and television shows, where it's just the artwork just features everybody, with those photoshopped collaborations. And, this has got everybody in it, but it's a bit more artistic, I think, in the presentation here. I like this. What do you think?
No, I would agree, Dennis. And I love the fact, like you said, that there's pretty much all the main characters that we're looking at in here, and the way that they're divided between the Empire and the Rebellion. And, there's just so much to look at. And it's wonderful because it's also very balanced in a lot of ways, too. So you have, Andor and Krennic back to back. And then you've also got a lot of the other key characters from both sides. And, the ships that round out each side of that as well. And then that nice little Death Star looming up there in the corner that's not quite finished yet, but it's beautiful to look at. And I can just sit here and stare at it for a while, which I have.
Right. And they got the Masasi Temple from Yavin 4 down in the lower right side, the Death Star up in the upper, I think it's the lower left for the temple, and upper right for the Death Star with some Star Destroyers and stuff like that. Digging the imagery here. This is really something. We get to see the Imperial tank that we got to see in Rogue One down there in the corner as well. And we get the, I can't remember the name of this the type of stormtrooper down there at the very bottom, right below Krennic. That was from Solo, a Star Wars story. That was on the train, the Convex.
Is that the mud troopers? They're not mud troopers.
No, that was not the mud troopers. I want to say it's like the range trooper or something. But
okay.
But yeah, that was a neat addition from Solo that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then we get a trailer, and they give us a description for that, which I'll read real quick, which says, the Death Star construction is a ticking time bomb, and Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, Luz and Rael, played by Stellan Skarsgård, Bix Colleen, played by Adria Arjona, and Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly, are ready to fight the Empire in an all-out war. From the halls of the Imperial Senate, where Senator Mon Mothma gives an impassioned speech, to every far-flung corner of the galaxy where the regular denizens are just trying to survive, the latest trailer promises a different kind of mission for the fledgling rebels we know. And it's about a minute and a half or so. Lot of great images here. I don't want to recite the entire trailer here because that could take all 20 or so minutes we got. But what is something that stood out to you from the trailer?
Okay, so the first thing, especially from the description where it says Senator Mothma gives an impassioned speech, that brings me directly to the episode of Rebels, the Secret Cargo, when Mon Mothma speaks out publicly against Palpatine and the Empire. So I'm wondering if we're going to get to see that exact scene in Andor come to life from Rebels. And that is like, oh my gosh, so cool. I'm just so here for it if that's the case. So that's the number one thing I think just from that teaser, that description that we get. But as far as the trailer itself, I mean, there's so many things that are happening so fast. But seeing Saw Gerrera, with his not so much Rogue One look quite yet, although you can tell that he's very battle worn, is another one that really stands out to me. And then, quick aside, I'm wondering with this wedding that we keep thinking is happening with Mon Mothma's daughter,
Uh-huh.
is that will we see a maybe computer generated like deep fake of Leia? Because I could see Leia coming to that wedding if that was the case, if that's what this is.
High
That's
key
my wish list.
speculation there.
Yeah, that's on my wish list. So those are the
Yeah,
two like big things to me. And then of course, our K2 droid, KX droid.
yeah. The K2 so was the one I was gonna pick. I mean, it's clearly K2 that
Oh
is
yeah.
smacking someone over the edge of
Oh
a
yeah.
railing on Coruscant. It's such a K2 thing to do on that. And then later, there's a whole bunch of KX droids sitting around a table. Like, what was that about?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to see what goes on there. I too like the brief glimpse we got of Mel Mothma addressing the Senate. Her line is, "The monster will come for us all," and
Yes.
they're not even shying away from the fact that Gorman is in this season of
Mm-hmm.
Andor. There was some speculation a while ago on that, but they've been explicitly addressing that in several of the interviews, and so we get a couple shots there as well. And then I cannot get enough of Andor in the cockpit of that new TIE fighter, whether it's the
Oh,
TIE
it's
Avenger or
beautiful.
what exactly it is, but that just seems like we're in store for such a treat when it comes to the action with that TIE fighter.
Oh yeah, I agree. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Um, get some great shots of Krennic here, and he delivers a line, "Resistance is absurd." I kept wanting him to say resistance is futile. I was like,
Yeah.
because I'm such a Star Trek fan, I was like, wait, when did he become a Borg? But just the his idea of resistance absurd kind of tickled me. And we get some great shots of the Death Star. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the only shot we got of the Death Star was after the final episode of season one. It's kind of a tease, but Krennic is standing in front of it from the bridge of a Star Destroyer or something, admiring the work on that. So, as much as I like the first season and I've been enjoying my rewatch lately, this trailer and the imagery here really seems like it is more of the Rogue One spirit than season
Mm-hmm.
one of Andor was. And I'm really digging that.
Oh, I agree. Well, there was so much with season one of Andor that I don't want to say it was necessarily drawn out, but with season two, we're getting very succinct periods of time and we're fast forwarding towards
Yeah.
Rogue One, where we were able to take things at a much slower pace in the first season. And I'm with you. I'm doing my rewatch as well. I'm on episode 7 now, I believe. 6 or 7. I just finished the Eye. And so but I mean, either way, it's so beautiful. I mean, just the
Mm-hmm.
entire world building and storytelling and the way that when it needs to be light, it's light. When it needs to be dark, it's dark. And so I'm so stinking excited for it. I can't even wait. It's just every day it's like, oh, we're just that much closer to the premiere of this thing, which is amazing. Did it seem to you, I have to ask you, that
Mm-hmm.
Krennic seemed so much younger, even though he's only just a few years younger, he seemed so much younger in this trailer than he did in the movie. Or is that just me?
I'll be honest, I didn't even notice one way or the other.
That's fair.
So next time I watch that trailer, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. But hey, I mean, he is younger. To your point, whether he looks so much younger, I couldn't say. But I'm just glad he's in it. I think that
Me too.
is, he was such a great character in Rogue One. Getting him in here as part of the Imperial machine was just brilliant. I love the fact that they're including so many characters from the movie. You know, we don't get Baze and Chirrut, and we don't get Jen and the likes there, but you know, but we got Melshi is coming back for this
Mhm.
season, and you know, I liked what you had to say about Saw Gerrera. It's definitely a transition from where we saw him in season 1 to where we saw him in Rogue One, with the imagery that we got to see, and you know, him
Mhm.
delivering an impassioned speech about, you know, this is, you know, being ready for, you know, everything that's going on there. You know, good shots of Luthen Rail as well. But I'm psyched up for this, and I just simply can't wait. And we don't have much longer. April 22nd, right after Star Wars Celebration Japan,
Right.
we'll get a chance to see it.
So great, so great. And of course, like you mentioned, Gorman too. It
Yeah.
sounds really dark of me to say, but I'm so stoked to see the entire like Gorman massacre play out because we've heard so much about it for so long. And
Oh
now
yeah.
it's just it's, you know, it's this lore that's actually coming to life, which is super cool.
Yeah. Started off as a reference, got built upon, and
Yeah.
now we're finally getting the whole thing. So
Yep.
here we
And
go.
Star Wars tends to do that. Gotta love
Indeed.
it.
All right, well, let's turn to comics. And what we've got is something that I'm very, very excited about. Dr. Aphra returns.
Yes.
Starting in June 18th, we get a new Dr. Aphra series. It's called Dr. Aphra Chaos Agent, written by Cherish Chen, who I have to admit I am not familiar with. Art by Gabriel Guzman. The description is Dr. Aphra makes her way through the galaxy in the era of the New Republic. The rogue archaeologist must team up with Luke Skywalker to track down a rare artifact. And what will she do when her tattoos no longer function? And there's a brief quote from Cherish Chen that says, in my humble opinion, there isn't a more fun character to be writing in the Star Wars galaxy than the one and only Dr. Aphra, cooking up new adventures for her in this new era, throwing her into increasingly tricky moral quandaries, and testing her resolve alongside some familiar faces has truly been like playing in the ultimate sandbox. Our favorite Chaos Agent is back, and I cannot wait to share what we've been working on and for you all to see Gabriel's incredibly dynamic art. So, yeah, no secret, if you've listened to this show long enough, I'm a big fan of Dr. Aphra. We have covered the Dr. Aphra audiobook in the past and had a great time doing so. So I'm super excited to see that they are bringing her back in a new series.
Yeah, and the first thing, of course, I thought of was you when I saw that image. I saw it on Instagram a few days ago, and of Dr. Aphra holding up that placard, you know, for the jail or whatever it is, you know, with her
Yeah,
name and everything on it. And that was the first image that I saw, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting!"
yeah.
And the artwork for the two other covers, the that we see here, is a different style for sure. Like I had to like look at it really, really closely to tell, okay, that is supposed to be Luke Skywalker. And of course I read the little caption as well. But at first I was like, oh, okay, is that Luke? Who is that? The green lightsaber gives it away. But so it's a
Uh-huh.
very alternate kind of fun sort of art style, but I need to go back. I know I keep saying this and I want to read the last series with Dr. Aphra in it. I know there's tons and tons and tons of them, but
Mm.
she is such a great character. I fell in love with her when we did the audiobook and it was just she was just so good. So good. So
Well,
yay.
one of the things I'm looking forward to is that team up with Luke, because she's teamed up with Luke before, but he was not a Jedi Knight at the time. You know, he was the equivalent of a Jedi Padawan. You know, it took place after A New Hope. Now this is after Return of the Jedi, when Luke's in his prime. So I'm kind of eager to see how that works out. You know, not to give too many spoilers, but she kept teasing him because, you know, he was this farm boy, you know, a little bit on the gullible side, I suppose, and kind of enjoyed making him blush. And now it's not going to be that way. So I'm kind of curious to see what that relationship. I mean, I don't want to oversell it as a relationship, but you get the idea. The partnership
Sure.
for these issues is going
Yes.
to be like there. Plus, hey,
Yeah.
Luke in action after Return of the Jedi. Sign me up.
Yep,
So,
there you go. Yeah, I do
so
like
yeah.
how the cover incorporates kind of an homage to her tattoos too, though. The one that she's back to back with Luke, I think that's really clever.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. But oh, now that you mention it, yeah, very good. I like it. Okay,
Cool.
like I said, that will be out on June 18th, issue number 1. We're going to spend the rest of this episode discussing the panel schedule at Star Wars Celebration Japan. And we'll kick it off by celebrating the fact that Star Wars Celebration Live, the live stream, will
Yes.
be returning.
Yes.
Now, what they haven't said is exactly what the Celebration live stream is going to actually cover. We
Mhm.
know it'll be some of the panels, but in the past couple of celebrations, they've gotten away from giving us the big panels of the
Mhm.
day, which is, of course, what we want. The one thing about that I guess is a little less pressure for me is that there is no big panel that is going to be like the movie announcement panel or the, here's what's coming on Disney Plus type of a panel. And that's kind of like the big one, right? And so I feel, you know, Japan's also on the other side of the world, so it's gonna be streaming
Right.
live in the middle of the night for us. So I'm not going to be sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting for this. I just can't. But at any rate, I'm glad that it's going to be available. Usually, it's through YouTube or something like that that we'll be able
Mhm.
to have that again this year because getting Japan's tough. I mean, I didn't even consider it. It wasn't going to work out with my schedule.
Right. Well, I was looking at the panel schedule just in general, and the ones that say, for example, The Mandalorian and Grogu streamed from Celebration Stage. I'm assuming that that is our indicator that that's one of the ones that will definitely be streamed because some of
No,
them just have
actually,
that.
it's not.
No?
It's
Okay.
That means it's being streamed to another stage. It's being streamed from
Oh,
the celebration stage to another stage there,
got you.
kind of like in the
Okay.
past. If you think back to Celebration Chicago in
Uh-huh.
2019 when they were
Yes.
doing the Revenge of the Sith panel, they streamed that to the floor and then they streamed it to other stages there at
Gotcha.
Celebration. So that's what that
Yes.
means. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Very important.
But speaking of the stages, since you brought it up, Jay, thank you. We have three main stages. We got the celebration stage, which is held in the Makahuri, I hope that's how you pronounce it in Japanese, event hall. And it's described as the celebration stage will shine with bright stars and original entertainment all weekend. The celebration station will present not to be missed productions, intimate conversations, and live events that Star Wars fans will be sure to want to add to their celebration weekend plans. The next stage is the Galaxy stage. These are the names they pretty much use at every celebration. The
Right.
Galaxy stage is one of two premiere stages for the weekend, along with the celebration stage. The best first looks on the big screen are planned, as well as a wide variety of shows featuring the depth and breadth of the Star Wars universe. Catch conversations with the masters, celebrity appearances, and other legendary Star Wars entertainment. Enjoy the pre-show before each session too, and that is, in fact, always a fun thing to do at Celebration. And then we have the Twin Sun stage, which is described as Celebration's Twin Sun stage, covers the ins and outs of what goes into creating the Star Wars universe, hosting guests who make it happen for the movies, television, toys, books, comics, and more. So those are the big three. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to recap briefly what the feature panels are for the weekend, and then we'll kind of get into some of the panels of note on each day. As we've discussed in a prior episode, on the first day, April 18th, in the celebration stage, we have the Mandalorian and Grogu, which will be at 10 a.m. in Japan. I don't know what the time difference is here in the United States. Plus, there's 4 time zones, so I trust everyone to look that up for themselves.
There you go.
Uh, on Saturday, April 19th at 10 a.m., we have Andor, a Star Wars story. And then also on Saturday at 1 p.m. on April 19th, we have Ahsoka. And then on Sunday, the last feature panel is the first look Star Wars Visions Volume 3 at 10 a.m. Okay, so we talked about those. We'll put those aside for a second. On Friday, we've got a number of key panels. I put some in our notes. Jay, is there any one of these that stood out to you?
Well, as far as the ones that you have listed here for Friday, I mean, I'm always into any of the publishing stuff. So I do like me a good manga. So that one's pretty interesting to me. But I think for me, anyways, is going to be like the big ones, the animation, the Lucasfilm
Yep.
animation 20th anniversary, because you and I both, we are so all about the animation. And I'm really hoping that it's not only going to be celebrating 20 years of past animation, but potentially, like it says, a sneak peek of what's to come that we'll get a fun announcement too. Holding out hope.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm going
Tales of the
to.
something.
Yeah, you took the words literally right out of my mouth there a second before I was going to say it. Is that I suspect there's going to be the next Tales of something coming out in May will be
Hmm.
announced right then. And I hope the big ask, the big hope for that is that we get the follow up to whatever comes after the Bad Batch. Our new series that's going to run for 2 or 3 or 4 seasons gets announced at that point, and so we know what to look forward to. And we have a new series like that. because how much fun are we having right now revisiting the Clone Wars? And
Oh,
how much
so
fun did
much
we talk
fun.
about, yeah, when we covered the Bad Batch and when we covered season 7 of the Clone Wars and our Rebels we watch. I'm anxious for that. We typically get more episodes in a season of an animated show than we do of a live action. And
Mhm.
so, with the exception maybe in Andor these days. So yeah, I want more animation, and it's past time we heard about what's coming in that department.
Mhm. Agreed.
Yeah, for me, I think you hit the big one for that day. I'm also looking forward to. Oh, and we should mention that the animation panel's at 3:30 that day. But the Lucasfilm Publishing, the mango's at noon, but the regular publishing panels at 2 p.m. It's called Stories from a Galaxy Far, Far Away. It'll be at the Galaxy stage. The description is join us in Japan for the latest publishing news from the prequel trilogy to the sequel trilogy and beyond, including news on the grand finale of the High Republic. And the authors in attendance will be Adam Christopher, Tessa Gratton, Mark Guggenheim, Lydia Kang, Ethan Sachs, Phil Sostak, Alyssa Wong, and Marvel's C.B. Sobolewski. So we've got people who have done the High Republic. We've got people who have done other areas there. We've got people associated with the comics. That's a lot right there.
Mhm.
And
It is.
and I love the fact that they're talking about, publishing news from the prequel trilogy to the sequel trilogy and beyond. So we
Right.
finally going to start getting stories that come after the sequel trilogy here. That could be huge. I hope this is not I hope this is not a premature statement in this description here that they are actually going to announce something from that realm.
Right. Well, wasn't it Tarkin that said, "If only would saying it would make it so." But,
Indeed.
we can
Yeah.
still hope.
Real quick, we get some of the other feature panels from that day before we move on to Saturday. Is we get a light magic panel on the celebration stage at 1, taking a deep dive into light magic and the documentary series chronicling the legendary journey of industrial light magic. And we know they just announced the second season of that. And then Doug Chang is doing a presentation at 5, and he's going to be doing. It's going to be about the world of Skeleton Crew. So designing everything that goes into that, and his panels are always awesome.
Oh,
Listen to
yeah,
him talk about his design and stuff. So that is definitely one not to miss. And
for sure.
speaking of Doug Chang, on Saturday he has another panel at 2:30 on the Twin Sun stage about working in the Star Wars art department. And it says he'll hold an in-depth conversation about the Star Wars art department and working in the film industry. Attendees will have an opportunity to ask questions about being a film designer today, what filmmakers to look for, and how to overcome the challenges of a changing industry. Again, catch him at some time at that weekend because
Yes.
he's just so insightful, and you're going to have multiple opportunities.
Oh, yeah, and he's so passionate about everything that he does. I mean, I never get tired of listening to him. I
Mhm.
suspect that this masterclass panel is going to be similar to what he's done at previous celebrations, but I don't care. Like, I'll listen to it again, even if it's word for word, because I could just never get enough of Doug Chang.
Oh yeah, 100% on that. But that said, what of the other panels stood out to you from that
Well, of
day?
course, the cosplay showcase, at
I kind
4:30
of
on
had
the
a
Twin
feeling.
Sun stage, yes. So it's, one for me, I would love to be able to see this in person and maybe even participate in it, but I love how they said it's more than just a showcase, it's a fun-filled celebration of the very best Star Wars cosplayers that want to share their talent, skill, and determination with the universe, because that's just what I always treasure about the
Uh-huh.
cosplay community itself is just the camaraderie and just the way that everyone inspires and helps each other too. So for me, that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. I put that description in there because it's like if I don't, Jay's just going to bring it up already, so might as well. But there, yeah. I
Good
when I
call.
saw that, I was like, oh, Jay's that's says Jay all over it.
Yep, for
Yeah,
sure.
the other, and of course, probably the biggest one on that Saturday, aside from the Ahsoka and what was the other and Andor panels, is going to be the conversation with Oscar Isaac at
Mhm.
2:45 on the Galaxy stage. The description says, "Happy beeps here, buddy! On the 10th anniversary of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Oscar Isaac. Ooh, sorry about that, Oscar. Takes the stage to look back at his time portraying Ace Pilot Poe Dameron. If that's all he does, it will be a fantastic panel. I mean, Oscar Isaac's got charisma to spare,
He
and I
does.
think he would just be awesome on that stage. I'm kind of hoping we get an announcement. with that panel as well.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, is he going to be in the Rogue Squadron movie that's coming up, or appearing in Simon Kinberg's movie, or the Ray New Jedi Order movie? So, like, there's so many opportunities for him to come back, do something else on
Mhm.
Disney Plus. I'd love to hear him come. I'd love to hear him talk about coming back to Star Wars. That would make the whole celebration, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% with you on that one.
Yeah.
And I have to say too, as far as the screening goes for the panel of the Siege of Mandalore at
Uh-huh.
3:30 p.m. on the celebration stage, that's really cool. I mean, yes, I've seen the Siege of Mandalore, but to see it, like we've said so many times in the past, there's just something about being in the room with other Star Wars fans that have it's an energy that you can't explain.
Right.
And to be able to watch that on the big screen with other Star Wars fans, I just think would be electric.
Oh, absolutely. And that would be where I would probably head if I couldn't make it into the Oscar Isaac panel
Mhm.
there.
Yeah,
Because just again, watching that, like you described it perfectly. Watching that with a whole bunch of other fans on a big screen would be a thrill to do so. I need to
yes.
watch that arc again. That was just so good.
So good.
Okay, Sunday. What stands out to you there?
Wow, there's actually quite a few of them on this
Uh-huh.
one, and I'm gonna go with well, one of them is the 50 Years of Magic, celebrating the legacy of industrial light and magic at 2 p.m. on the Galaxy stage, and I'll just read what you have in our notes. Join industrial light and magic as we commemorate a monumental milestone, 50 years of groundbreaking visual effects artistry, production mastery, and technological innovation. In this panel, hear from longtime ILM veterans as they take you on a journey through the company's legendary achievements. I've just always been so fascinated by the way that a lot of this technology has evolved and the way that they've taken filmmaking to the next level and then the next level and then the next level. I'm just always just enamored by that kind of thing. So I just think that that would be a lot of fun. And then my other one would definitely be the just listening to Tim Morrison and Daniel Logan in the Fett family at 1 p.m. as they discuss their adventures portraying the iconic bounty hunters Django and Boba Fett. And even though we got to see them at the last celebration and just the banter back and forth, I just can't get enough of those two together. I just think that would be so much fun.
Yeah. So going back to the light magic thing, it's like they're really doubling down on industrial light and magic at this celebration, because we
Mhm.
just talked about how on Friday they're doing uh, you know, a, the celebration at one. It says, "Join us for a deep dive into light and magic. They critically acclaimed documented series chronicling the legendary journey of industrial light and magic." So I'm sure they're going to cover a lot of stuff. And then if you want more, if you didn't get
Mhm.
enough, you can
Yeah.
come back on Sunday at 2 p.m. at that Galaxy stage and check it out. And here's the thing that kills me is that you talked about the Fett family, with Tamara Morrison and Daniel Logan as they're discussing their ventures as playing Django and Boba Fett. But and that's on the Twin Sun stage. At the same time, on the celebration stage, we have the heroic sidekicks of Star Wars: Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Ahmed Best, Jar Jar Binks, and Alan Tudyk, K2SO, take the stage for a behind-the-scenes look at the performances as the heroic sidekicks of the galaxy far, far away.
Mhm.
Talk about a choice, having
Right.
to make those. I mean,
Agreed.
here's the thing that I think would sway me to the heroic sidekicks. Two things. One, like you said, I just saw Tamara Morrison and Daniel Logan. I just saw in 2022. I saw those guys at the Attack of the Clones panel, and they were
Mhm.
fantastic and awesome. And
Mhm.
had great banter back and forth with them, along with a bunch of other stars from that movie. But Ahmed Best has been teasing on his social media accounts that he's got some announcement to make at Star Wars Celebration.
That's a good
And
point. Yeah.
yeah. And this is the only panel I've seen him listed in. And what he said in his video on Instagram, and he was basically looking for Japanese designers to help that he could partner with to outfit him for Celebration, which is kind of cool that he was reaching out for that. But he said,
Yeah.
the way he places like, and when I walk across that stage and I make that announcement, oh, it's so he won't tell you what it is, but he's been teasing something big there.
Yeah.
And that's one of those big reveal moments that everybody loves at Celebration. So I think that would be what would sway me to go check that one out. But you can't go wrong. If you can't get into that one, going to see, Tamara Morrison and Daniel Logan would be
Yeah.
fantastic too.
Yeah, but you're right, you almost have to do the old, "Hey, Google, flip a coin" thing for that one.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
you can't go wrong with either one.
Right. And then just like the day before, when we get a screening of the Siege of Mandalore, they are doing a screening of the Star Wars Rebels finale at 2:15 on the Twin Stage. Basically it's described as relive the unforgettable Star Wars Rebel finale, which paved the way for future stories in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. I wonder if they're really just doing the last episode or if they're doing like the last two, because those kind of like build off each other. I mean, how many
They
episodes are
do.
we getting? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I know Vanessa Marshall is going to be there, so I imagine that she's gonna be part of maybe introducing that or wrapping it up or maybe having a Q&A afterwards. I think that would be really cool. I don't know who else from the Rebels crew is gonna be there. I think it might just be her, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I mean, Ashley Eckstein's going to be there, so she's kind of
True.
technically part of it,
Yes,
but
yes,
still.
yes.
But I mean, when we're talking the core Rebels cast,
Mhm,
pretty sure she's it. So,
mhm, mhm.
um, hey, but I'd love for her to get the spotlight there
Oh,
during that panel.
yes,
She totally deserves it.
definitely.
So,
Amen.
and then the last thing of note, of course, is the closing ceremony at 3:30 p.m., which will be live on all stages. And they say, gather with your friends and fellow Star Wars fans to relive the best moments of the weekend and bid a farewell to another Star Wars celebration featuring special guests, weekend highlights, and much more. This is a send-off you won't want to miss. Okay, they say that every single celebration, and there
Mhm.
usually is really light on special guests. It's the people that are kind of running the stages that show up to that. But the big thing that happens at celebration is they announce the next
Yep.
celebration at the closing ceremonies. And if they announce one from anywhere other than the United States,
Coming to you from Sydney, Australia. Nothing against anyone from Sydney, Australia. However,
Sao Paulo, Brazil.
right?
It just, uh, and perhaps, okay, here's the one exception I have to that. If they announce one next year that's not in the States, as long as we get one in 2027 stateside for the 50th anniversary of New Hope, I'd be good.
As it should
But,
be.
but still, it's just kind of wow. I mean, it'll have
Mhm,
been, it's been 3 years since we had a stateside celebration, which I don't want to sound spoiled, but this is where you and I hang out. This is
mhm.
where we hang out with a lot of our friends from around the country. And it's hard when you don't have an event like this that everyone can plan to go to do that type of thing. And I want that opportunity again.
Yeah,
So come on.
exactly. I mean, heck, we haven't seen each other since 2022, for Pete's sake.
I know. We
So,
hung out
I know
in
it's hard to believe we
Galaxy's
talk to
Edge.
each other. Yeah, exactly. Here's one of my predictions, my, far-fetched predictions here, but if it is stateside in 2027, I think it would be perfect if it was in Los Angeles because that's where Grauman's Chinese Theater is, and that's where Star Wars premiered. So, I think that would be a perfect way to bring it full circle to where the adventure began. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think it would be Los Angeles adjacent in Anaheim.
Sure.
The convention
Right.
center there, because they're familiar with that area. They've done it there before. And if it's not there, I think the number two most likely place would be Orlando,
Mhm.
because it's been there frequently as well.
Mhm.
And it's another Disney headquarters. So, I mean, I think stateside, the three places we can pretty much count on it being is going to be Anaheim, Orlando, or Chicago, just
Man.
because of the availability of hotels, the availability of the convention space, the availability of flights that go into those places, plus other entertainment options outside of celebration. And
Mhm.
that's kind of seems to be the things that they're looking for.
Mhm.
So,
Yes, yes. Selfishly, I would love for it to be in Chicago again because I can actually drive that one,
yeah,
but just stateside in general would be a blessing for sure.
yeah. Unless they redo the convention scene down here, it's never going to be in Dallas. So I gave up
Mm.
that thought a long time ago, but that's fine. I don't mind traveling to see it and get to go
Mm.
someplace that I'm not normally. And hey, you put it on one of the Disney cities, that gives me an opportunity to check out the parks again, which is
Yep.
pretty much the only way that I do that these days. So,
Mhm.
okay. So we've hit the big stages, the big panels, but that's not all there is. There are a number of other stages. Typically, these are in smaller rooms. There's a fan stage, a Galactic Senate stage, HoloNet News stage, University stage, Collector stage as well. And you can find the full schedule for all those stages over on StarWarsCelebration.com. I don't know many people that are actually hosting anything outside of the main stages, so I'm just not gonna dive into that. But There is plenty to do at this celebration. I was
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of worried about that. I think when, we just kind of heard who the guest list was going to be and stuff, but it really sounds like they filled up those 3 days quite nicely.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for different fan groups, for everything from the 501st, Mando Mercs, different cosplaying groups, a lot of different types of just collecting, if you're into collecting and that type of thing. So I was really encouraged to see all of those.
Indeed. Indeed. Okay, well then, there you go. That is your celebration panel preview, and that'll bring us to the end of this episode of Podcast Stardust and our look at the week's Star Wars news. Hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for being along with us. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. You know how to do that on your podcatcher of choice. And once you've done that, we would greatly appreciate it if you would go ahead and review, rate, like, whatever, set up alerts for the podcast. That greatly helps us out with others discovering the show. And if you want to check out our entire back catalog of shows, all 865 of them, one of the best places you can do that is at retrozap.com, where you can find the entire network of shows. I know Jay and Josh are busy with episodes of Enjoy Stuff and Superhero Suite and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files as they're reviewing the current season of Daredevil Born Again, which is so good. If you have not watched that, you got to go check that out. But with that having been said, Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are again, like you did at the beginning of the show, and where else we can be found online?
Absolutely. So we are very easily found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And we do have some Pinterest boards over on our Pinterest page or Pinterest page on our Pinterest boards. We're on Pinterest. So there you go. We're also on YouTube. So we have 2 different YouTube outlets where you can find all of our shows. And it's not a video, it's just a static picture. But Dennis always does a great job with the key art for the shows. So you can check those out on the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. And those do support interactions as well as subscriptions and ratings. So if you want to get in on some of your ideas for what kind of panels you're interested in, you can do that over on YouTube. And we also have our TeePublic store. So if you are in need of some new Podcast Stardust swag to fill your drawers and closets, you can head on over to the link in our show notes. And there's everything from apparel and even home goods. And if you do happen to pick something up, just remember that every purchase does help to support the show, and we definitely appreciate that. So once again, the link to that is in our show notes.
Jay, I know you had a really big weekend last weekend, so why don't you remind everybody where they can follow your adventures?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrapped up a weekend at Fan Expo Cleveland, mainly volunteering with Rubber City Cosplay, which is a volunteer cosplay group that this time around we mainly ran the cosplay repair station in the cosplay lounge. And so I just really had a great time interacting with all kinds of people that mainly needed help with their cosplays. But it was great because when you do fix something, they're so appreciative, as we are. And so that was a lot of fun, but I did get to be fourth sister, and then I did debut 2 non-Star Wars cosplays. So one from Grimm, which is called a Fuchsbau, and then I also debuted Moira Rose, the Crow version from Schitt's Creek. And there was a few of us that dressed in different characters from the show, and it was just a hoot going out on the floor and all the reactions that we were getting from people. So it was a heck of a lot of fun. And you can also catch all of my adventures as Ahsoka, Hera, once again, the fourth sister, and my original concept Mandalorian, as well as some other things, once again, on my cosplay account on Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay.
Okay, upcoming on the show on Monday, we are reviewing the next episode in the Clone Wars in our rewatch, which would be episode 5 from season 2, Landing at Point Rain. Good episode. Make sure you join us for that one. On Wednesday, we are jumping into a Star Wars manga, The Edge of Balance, Volume 3. So make sure you come check that out. So with that having been said, thanks for listening to episode 866 of Podcast Stardust. Everyone, have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.